everybody, welcome to our channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're reviewing issue 5 of the Wonder Twins. This was originally going to be a 6-issue miniseries, but it recently got renewed for 6 more issues. We're not expecting any improvement in quality of the story. It's probably just gonna be more of the same, but you can expect more videos from us. This series hasn't really felt like a superhero series. Our main characters end up taking a back seat often to political issues or even other characters. One of the biggest problems with this series is a real lack of story structure. This is issue 5, but we still don't know much about our main characters. We still don't know why they were exiled from their home planet, and they haven't really changed or shown any signs of character growth. We're told that Jaina is shy, but we never see her acting shy, so there's no room for her to grow from being a shy person into being more confident. She just is confident already. Zan is supposed to want to be the center of attention and be popular, but then there are times that the story wants him to be wise beyond his years. It wasn't actually good advice, but the story treated it like it was. But this also leads to conflicting character development. Is he desperate for his classmates' approval, or does he not care about their opinions? Then there's the villains and supporting characters. There's a lot of them, and they're all fighting for the spotlight. But rather than being characters, they're all pretty stereotypical. There's not enough time to flesh all these characters out, and what we do get can be pretty obnoxious. And they seem to only exist so that way they can help to further some political agenda, which doesn't make them terribly compelling. And it ends up taking away from our heroes. This is another issue that focuses a lot on politics, this one being racism, and honestly it's fine to have these themes in comics. That's not the issue. The issue is how it's presented, and how it's worked into the story. Unfortunately, this series is very heavy-handed with its political messages, and pretty cringy. That ends up hurting the message and the comic as a whole. The tone is all over the place, and that makes it hard to take this issue seriously, so the story, characters, and message all suffer. The issue opens with Polly winning the science fair, despite the fact that she didn't actually have a project. She only had a hypothesis, but I guess they were impressed, so congrats. Jaina actually wins 2nd place despite the fact that they made fun of her project last issue. Didn't see that coming. Unfortunately, Polly can't enjoy her victory because she found out her dad is still working with the League of Annoyance. Jaina tries to cheer her up, but she's pretty terrible at it. She claims that some people are just born to be heroes or villains. This speech is just awful. She's basically saying that people have no control over their own destinies, claiming that we all just end up wherever life dumps us. What kind of message is this? Aren't superheroes supposed to inspire us to be ambitious and strong-willed, to do the right thing even if it's hard or inconvenient, and to not expect any kind of reward for it? Because doing the right thing is a reward in itself. Instead, here she's basically saying, "Suck it up, Buttercup, this is the hand life dealt you." How inspirational. This also seems to contradict Jaina's earlier sentiment of how there's no such thing as good and evil, only pettiness and generosity. But now she's saying that people are born to be heroes or villains. Pick a philosophy and stick with it. But Polly agrees with Jaina's terrible sentiment, but also says that she can't let the League of Annoyance drag her father down with them. But Jaina assures her that she and her brother will take care of everything for her. It's nice to see her looking out for her friend, even if she gives terrible advice. Polly's father, Filo, comes home only to find the Scrambler in his house. Filo says he didn't realize that the two of them were so close, and the Scrambler says he didn't think he would want a guy in an egg costume standing outside his door. Then he asks him again how he got sucked into this life, even though he asked that twice in the last issue. It's like the writer really wants to give more information on Filo but doesn't know how to actually put it in the story, so he just has the Scrambler ask him the same question 3 times. So now we get a 3rd backstory when he really only needed 1. But it turns out he ended up working for Lex Luthor because no one else would hire him due to racism. I'm not gonna try to say this never happens, but in all of Metropolis, only Lex Luthor? I know this book is trying to be satirical, so things are exaggerated, but this book is also supposed to be canon with the greater DC universe. Aside from that, we know that Bruce Wayne would hire him, no problem. Wayne Enterprises headquarters might might be in Gotham, but I'm sure they have a branch in Metropolis. I just can't believe that Lex Luthor is his only option. But every white person has to be racist. That's how these flanderized books work. But Filo asks the Scrambler how he got roped into this. And based on what we've seen of him for the past few issues, we were expecting a pretty tragic backstory. Maybe he was unjustly imprisoned. But as it turns out, the Scrambler was a magician. That's it. He was a magician. He's a disgruntled magician who didn't like the way the audience reacted to his act. We find out that not only can he switch bodies with people, he can also apparently switch body parts. So are his powers magic-based? He performed an act where he basically turned a woman into a mermaid and put her legs on a fish. But then he got mad that the audience wanted him to switch them back. He decided that people didn't want magic, they just wanted the status quo. Scrambler, magicians are entertainers. Their job is to entertain people. That's it. It's not the world's fault that you didn't understand what a magician actually is. They don't change the status quo. They wow people with illusions. What a disappointing and underwhelming backstory. He tells Filo that he wants his help performing a real magic trick where things don't get switched back. But honestly, I don't care about this character anymore. He had so much potential and they just flushed it down the toilet. Nobody wronged him. Life didn't throw him lemons. He just didn't understand what a magician is. The Scrambler just isn't being rational. Anyway, Polly comes in and isn't happy to see the Scrambler. She puts her foot down, demanding that he leave. Filo says that he can't help him anyway, even going as far as to say that no one can help him. So it must be pretty asinine. So the Scrambler leaves, but also leaves his card with them, which literally says former magician. He could still be a magician though. He just decided that he didn't like it anymore. Meanwhile, Jaina has decided to challenge the League of Annoyance to a battle royale, so that way they can get rid of them once and for all and Filo Math would be free of them. At least in her mind, she doesn't know that he's actually stuck under Lex's thumb, not really the League of Annoyance's. But at least she's trying. Zan's trying to talk her down by saying that they don't know how many people would show up and they might be overwhelmed. But Jaina says that she picked the location so they'll have the advantage. Did she get authorization from the zoo to do this? But it cuts back to the maths. Filo is happy that Polly won the science fair, but Polly chastises him for letting a supervillain into their home. Although the Scrambler just came in on his own, so they might want to consider changing the locks. That's actually pretty concerning. Polly asks her dad not to work with the League of Annoyance anymore, but he says that he doesn't have a choice because he owes Lex money. He says that if he doesn't repay Lex, he could take everything from them. Their house, her college fund. But honestly, does Polly need a college fund? She won the science fair without an actual project. Why would she have trouble getting scholarships? But Polly brings up her dead mother, which convinces Filo to at least try to get out of it. I wonder why Polly isn't asking Jaina for help. She already said she was taking care of it, but you'd think if you had problems with supervillains, you'd go to superheroes for help. It's good that she's talking to her dad, but why not go to the Justice League for help too? He could probably use it. Polly asks what the Scrambler's plan was about anyway, and Filo describes it as crazy cakes despite being a grown man. But he also says that he probably wouldn't have been able to help anyway, and he doesn't really give us any more information. The League of Annoyance shows up, and only the Malingerer and Cellphone Sylvia are left, so Zan didn't really have much to worry about. Red Flag came along because he's mad that Jaina won't answer his texts. But the Malingerer asks Sylvia about her cell phone. Apparently it's a Kryptonian device that she found at an estate sale. She doesn't know much about it, but she thinks it's powered by fear, cause it zaps people every time she's afraid. Plus it's the best cell phone she's ever had. It's kind of concerning to use technology that you don't understand, but I wouldn't expect a League of Annoyance member to be responsible. So she's just a woman with a fancy cell phone. She's not a technopath or an inventor or anything. That's kind of underwhelming. And what's with the Malingerer? Does he have any powers? A supervillain is not the right profession for someone who's worried about injury. The Malingerer stops at the drinking fountain, but it turns out Zan is hiding within it, and the Wonder Twins attack. Jaina turned into a kangaroo, and she's apparently made friends with some other animals. That's pretty nice to see. A koala charges at Sylvia and she zaps it with her cell phone, and it appears to disintegrate. It's later revealed that the cell phone actually zaps people or koalas to the Phantom Zone. I don't know why there would be a cell phone that functions as a cell phone, but also happens to zap people away to the Phantom Zone whenever the user is afraid, nor do I know why it was in an estate sale. Meanwhile, Red Flag confronts the twins about dumping him, saying it's only over when he says it's over. Red Flag fights with an actual red flag, at least that's a bit different from what you usually see like a sword or a gun. But the twins defeat him and the malingerer and they get arrested, but Cellphone Sylvia manages to evade arrest. Jaina says she can't wait to tell Polly that the League of Annoyance is no more, but Sylvia got away. The Wonder Twins aren't that great at their job. That was the whole point of this battle royale, to get all the remaining members. Sylvia flees to their headquarters and tries to get in contact with Lex Luthor for help. She explains to the answering machine that everyone else has been captured and she's the only one left. She also mentions as usual. Has this happened before? I guess there's nothing stopping them from bringing in new members of the League of Annoyance, so Jaina's plan didn't really work after all. She also says that she joined the League of Annoyance as a last resort in order to stop the changing demographics of Metropolis. In other words, she's racist and wants to get rid of people of color. But this doesn't really make sense when you think about it, and kind of contradicts what we've seen in previous issues. The League is overseen by Lex Luthor, who was established to not be racist, apparently the only not racist business owner in Metropolis. Plus the League of Annoyance brought Math on, and it wasn't a secret. She was sitting at the table with him. Honestly, it feels like they didn't really have a plan for these characters going forward, and only decided now that she would be racist so they can make this commentary. But she starts panicking because she sees a group of black people outside the warehouse and thinks they're trying to get in, even though they're clearly just minding their own business. She attacks only to discover that the person who was coming in was actually Math. She seems upset about this for a second, but then starts worrying if anyone saw this or not. What was her relationship with Filo? Did she despise him but keep it to herself? Or did she tolerate him specifically?
Nick, stop it. You're not like them.
Oh, there's a them now.
There is a way to do this, but this comic is so all over the place that nothing gets the attention and focus that it really needs in order for it to be effective in storytelling. This is actually a really poor way to handle these kinds of topics, because they are very sensitive, and they need to be treated with a level of respect. It feels like these issues are being made fun of, like last issue with that testicular cancer bit. But it turns out that the incident was recorded and posted to the internet. The news picks it up and explains that the video has gone viral, and that the woman has been dubbed Cellphone Sylvia, but she was already called Cellphone Sylvia. She's not just a racist white suburban woman stereotype. She's a supervillain and the last member of the League of Annoyance. She just evaded arrest 2 pages ago. That's why she was hiding out. The story completely forgets about this. They just stopped looking for her, even though she's all over the news and they know exactly where she is. The whole point of the Battle Royale was to finish off the League of Annoyance, specifically so they could free Filo. But the story totally forgets about the twins too. We don't see them again until the second to last page of this book. Jaina said that she couldn't wait to tell Polly about this, but I guess she could. Sylvia tries defending herself, saying that this was one mistake and it doesn't reflect the truth in her heart. The reporter asks what happened to Filo, and Sylvia says that she doesn't know. Her phone is Kryptonian tech, so she doesn't actually know what happens after the zap, and she kind of casually mentions them, but they kind of gloss over it. It turns out she has done this before, something this sinister, and they gloss over it for a TMZ parody. She begs Lex for help because they're destroying her on social media, and Lex agrees to help her, but honestly, he was established to be results oriented. From Lex's perspective, Filo is way more valuable to him than Sylvia would be. The only thing we know about her is that she's an accountant, but that's pretty easily replaceable. Filo is a Nobel Prize winning scientist whose research is far more useful to him than anything Sylvia could offer, but for some reason he just doesn't care about this at all. Shouldn't he write off Sylvia as more trouble than she's worth and try to get Filo back? But Lex puts her on his news network, an obvious parody of Fox News, and apparently everyone who works there is bald? Is that a requirement to work there? The pundits discuss the situation. They're basically all strawman arguments arguments, even though there's a literal straw man here, but none of them bother to bring up that she's a supervillain who was wanted by the police. This could have worked if it explained that this is Lex's news channel and they purposely left out this information to mislead the public, and it could have been commentary about how the news media will edit stories to fit their own narrative instead of reporting on the truth, but instead the entire comic forgot about this very important detail. But the police conclude that she was within her rights and so they don't press any charges. But what about the other charges? Why was the malingerer arrested? Why was Red Flag arrested? This book is trying to comment on reality, but it's not rooted in reality, so it makes for really poor commentary. Obviously Polly is devastated by this. She decides to go to the Scrambler and help him with his new magic trick, because she feels that if her father couldn't get justice in the world, what hope do the rest of them have? I wish the comic had shown Jaina trying to reach out to Polly, and also trying to get justice for her father. Instead, she went to the Scrambler. Her only interaction with him was kicking him out of her house, and her father told her that his plan was bonkers. Her best friend is a superhero with direct connections to the Justice League, and her father was zapped by a supervillain who they wanted arrested. But that wouldn't work with the commentary they're trying to make, so the comic just ignores it. It then finally cuts back to the twins, who are just hanging out in the Hall of Justice and don't seem to know or care about what just happened, despite their efforts earlier in this issue. The supercomputer starts freaking out because she's being hacked, so she cries out to Jaina for help, and Jaina is way more concerned with this than she is with Polly. No offense to the supercomputer, just saying. The Scrambler finally reveals his plan, which is to connect himself to the cloud so he can be in close proximity to everyone on Earth, and therefore switch anybody's body he wanted. I really don't get his philosophy. He was just a magician that didn't like the way the audience responded to his act, and now all of a sudden he wants to, I guess, get rid of the prison system and rich and powerful people? He claims the only way the powerful would make a system that worked for everybody is if they didn't know whether they would be powerful or not. But the Scrambler switches the minds of a million people and says they have to fix the system to work for everybody, or else he'll switch everybody on Earth's mind, and they only have 30 days to do this. He expects them to just rewrite society in a month? This plan is also really problematic. I realize this is supposed to be poetic, but you're switching the minds of an older man with a younger kid. It's creepy. This whole plan is very creepy. But that's where the comic ends. This was such a mess on so many levels. The Scrambler is one of those people who thinks he has the whole world figured out, but really he's just entitled. They have this 17-year-old girl working with this crazy middle-aged man as if they're some kind of kindred spirits, but Polly has actually suffered, even if it was ham-fisted to serve the message of this story instead of actually making sense in context of the plot. Seriously, why didn't she go to Jaina and the Justice League? She's your best friend! It's probably because her name is a pun and she's destined to be a villain regardless. Maybe Jaina's spiel earlier was just foreshadowing. I would have rather seen her take matters into her own hands than this. The Scrambler and Polly were both interesting characters. Polly had a direct connection to the conflict, more so than the twins even, and the Scrambler had interesting powers and a lot of promise as a villain. But like every other character in this comic, they just exist to serve the purpose of the political message. The Scrambler's plan is taken from John Rawls. He was a political philosopher who had the thought experiments that people would work to a more equal society if they didn't know exactly what place they would have in that society. This could have worked if they had set the Scrambler's character up for it, but the last plan we got from the Scrambler was that he wanted to switch bodies with the president so he could take over the country. That's a very different plan, with very different outcomes. Plus, he's just a disgruntled magician. He doesn't have a good reason to despise society. Maybe this could have been Polly's plan. Maybe she would give up on the concept of justice and just use her research from the science fair to take advantage of the internet supposedly being alive. Maybe she doesn't even need the Scrambler. Maybe she has some tech that she could use. That way she wouldn't be working with a middle-aged man. That would have at least made more sense with the story we got. But this comic doesn't care to be a story. The Wonder Twins are are forgotten about halfway through the book because the message doesn't need them anymore. And these messages come up so abruptly, right in the middle of some really goofy stuff. Nothing is set up, so there's no subtlety, and that makes it seem like the comic is making fun of these issues. Having politics in a work of entertainment is completely doable. The cartoon series Static Shock handled a lot of really mature themes, including school shootings, racism, and homelessness, among others. And that was a cartoon based on comics that are now under the DC umbrella. They worked because they were stories, and the messages were just a part of the story. But here, there isn't really a story, and that's really disappointing. Comics can do a lot better than this. But that's just our opinion. What do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more content from us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.